Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you try to solve your life through thinking, the thinking itself becomes the problem? You sit down perhaps in the evening, perhaps in a quiet moment that life rarely gives you, and instead of experiencing that quiet, you are immediately pulled somewhere else. You are replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, editing your words, changing your tone, imagining a different outcome, or you are projecting yourself into next month, next year, running calculations about what might go wrong, what you need to fix, what you need to become before you can finally feel at ease. And the strange thing, the deeply strange thing, is that this has been happening for so long that you have stopped noticing it. The noise has become the background of your life. The mental commentary, the endless internal dialogue, the voice that judges, plans, worries, remembers, and anticipates, that voice has become so familiar that you have made a fundamental and life-altering mistake. You have confused it for yourself. This is where all suffering begins. Not in your circumstances, not in what happened to you, not in what might happen tomorrow. It begins in this single unconscious identification. The belief that you are your thoughts. And I want you to stay with that for a moment, because if you truly understand what is being pointed to here, something in you will shift. Not because of any effort you make, but because the truth, when it is seen clearly, dissolves the illusion on its own. So let us begin there. Let us begin with the voice. Right now, as you listen to these words, there is another layer of activity happening inside you. A part of your mind is already commenting on what is being said. It is agreeing or disagreeing or comparing this to something it has heard before. It is deciding whether this is useful, whether it is worth continuing to listen, whether you should be doing something else right now. That inner voice, that constant commentator, has been with you since you were very young, and for most of your life you have not questioned it. You have simply followed it. You have believed it. You have, in the most fundamental sense, been it. But here is the question that changes everything. Who is aware of that voice? Think about it carefully. If you can observe the thought, if you can notice the commentary happening inside your head, then you cannot be the commentary itself. The observer and the observed cannot be the same thing. There is the thought, and there is the one who notices the thought, and that one, that awareness, that silent witness, that is closer to what you truly are than any thought you have ever had. Most people live their entire lives without ever discovering this. They move from thought to thought, from emotion to emotion, from problem to problem, always inside the stream, never stepping back to see the stream itself. And because they are always inside it, they are always being carried, they are always at the mercy of whatever the mind decides to produce next. This is the condition of ordinary human consciousness, and it is not your fault. It was not taught to you differently. In fact, the entire structure of modern life reinforces it. You are encouraged to think more, to plan more, to analyze more, to optimize more. Thinking is celebrated. Stillness is suspicious. Presence is mistaken for laziness or passivity. But here's what no productivity system, no career advice, no self-help formula will ever tell you. The mind, when it becomes the master instead of the servant, creates a kind of prison, a very sophisticated prison with walls made of stories and bars made of beliefs. And the most insidious thing about this prison is that the prisoner does not know they are imprisoned, because the prisoner is made of the same material as the walls. You are not suffering because your life is wrong. You are suffering because you are lost in your mind's interpretation of your life. And those are two very different things. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine two people facing the exact same situation. Perhaps they have both lost a job. The external circumstances identical, but one person experiences this as a temporary setback, an opening, perhaps even a relief. The other experiences it as confirmation of their deepest fear, evidence that they are not good enough, a catastrophe that threatens their entire identity. The difference is not in the situation. The difference is in the story the mind tells about the situation. And the mind tells that story so quickly, so automatically, so convincingly that it becomes indistinguishable from reality itself. You stop experiencing what is happening. You start experiencing your mind's narrative about what is happening. And that narrative is almost always colored by the past, filtered through old wounds, old beliefs, old conclusions you drew about yourself and the world when you were perhaps 5 years old or 12 or 22. This is the first great illusion the mind creates. It tells you that your interpretation of reality is reality. It presents its commentary as fact, and you, having never been shown the difference, accept it completely. Now the mind does this through time. This is crucial to understand. The mind's primary tool for keeping you unconscious is its relationship with time, specifically its addiction to the past and the future. Watch what happens in an ordinary day. You wake up, and before you have even fully opened your eyes, the mind has already begun. It is running through the list of things you need to do today. It is reminding you of the uncomfortable email you need to send. It is rehearsing a difficult conversation. It is calculating whether you have enough time, enough money, enough energy. It is already in those first moments of waking somewhere else, anywhere but here, anywhere but now, and this is not accidental. The mind has a deep investment in time, because without the past, the ego, that constructed sense of self that the mind has built, has no identity, and without the future, the ego has no hope of salvation, no possibility of finally becoming what it needs to become to be okay. Think about how much of your mental and emotional life is organized around these two poles. The past gives you your story, who you are, what you have been through, what was done to you, what you did, what you lost, what you failed to achieve. The mind uses all of this as building material for the self-concept. You are the sum of your history. It tells you you are your wounds, you are your achievements, you are your regrets, you are what happened to you. And then the future becomes the place where all of that will finally be resolved. When you get the right relationship, the right amount of money, the right body, the right recognition, then you will be able to relax. Then you will be allowed to feel at peace. Then the waiting will be over, but notice something very carefully. That moment never arrives. Because the moment you achieve the thing the mind said would make you happy, the mind immediately moves the horizon. It finds a new problem, a new lack, a new goal, and you're back to waiting, back to the future. Back to the feeling that life is happening somewhere just ahead of you, just out of reach. This is not a personal failure, this is the structure of the ego mind. It is designed, if we can use that word, to perpetuate itself through dissatisfaction. Because a mind that is fully at peace with the present moment has no use for the ego's constant activity. And the ego, like any system, resists its own dissolution. So it keeps you moving, it keeps you thinking, it keeps you planning and worrying and remembering and comparing. Not because any of this is necessary, but because stillness is the one thing the ego cannot survive. And here we arrive at something that might be uncomfortable to hear. A part of you, a part that is not truly you, but that has been mistaken for you, does not want to be at peace. A part of you is addicted to the drama, addicted to the suffering. Not because you're broken or masochistic, but because that suffering has become the fuel for a very old, very familiar sense of self. This is what can be called the pain body. It is the accumulated emotional pain that lives in the body and the psyche. Every time you were hurt and did not fully process that hurt, it left a residue, a layer of unresolved emotional energy, and over time these layers accumulate into something that has its own momentum, its own appetite. The pain body is not you, but it lives inside you, and it feeds on pain. It feeds on conflict, on drama, on negative thinking, on grievances. When it is dormant, you might feel relatively okay. But then something triggers it, a word someone says, a tone of voice, a situation that reminds it of an old wound. And suddenly you're not responding to the present moment. You're reacting from a very old place. A place of accumulated hurt that is looking for an outlet, looking for more pain to confirm its own existence. Have you ever noticed that you sometimes feel almost compelled to think painful thoughts? That you return again and again to a memory that hurts you or a scenario that frightens you even when you consciously do not want to? That is the pain body feeding. That is the emotional accumulation of the past reaching into the present and pulling it toward suffering. And this is why simply deciding to think positively does not work. You cannot fight the pain body with the mind, because the mind is already partly in its grip. You cannot think your way out of a pattern that is deeper than thought. You can only become aware of it. You can only observe it, and in that observation something remarkable happens. The moment you recognize the pain body as a pattern, as an old accumulation of energy that is not you, it begins to lose its power, not because you have defeated it, not because you have analyzed it to death, but because your awareness itself is the antidote. Consciousness, when it turns its light on the unconscious pattern, dissolves it, not through effort, but through presence. This brings us to the most important thing that can be said in this entire conversation. And I want you to receive it not as a concept to be understood, but as a possibility to be felt. You are not your mind. You are the awareness in which the mind arises. You are the space in which thoughts appear and disappear like clouds moving through an open sky. The sky is never disturbed by the clouds. The sky does not become the clouds. It simply holds them effortlessly, without resistance, without clinging. That sky, that open, aware, undisturbed space, that is your true nature, and it is always here. It is here right now as you listen to these words. It was here before the first thought you ever had this morning. It will be here after the last thought you have tonight. It is the constant, the unchanging ground beneath the ever-changing movement of thought and emotion. The spiritual traditions of the world have pointed to this in different ways, with different words in different cultural contexts. Some call it pure consciousness, some call it some call it the witness, some call it the soul. The word does not matter. What matters is the direct recognition of it, the felt sense of it, the living reality of it. And the beautiful thing, the thing that can bring immediate relief, is that you do not have to create this awareness. You do not have to earn it, or develop it, or meditate for 30 years to access it. It is already what you are. The only thing that obscures it is the identification with the thinking mind. The only thing that covers the sky is the belief that you are the clouds. So how do you step out of the thought stream? How do you shift from being lost in the mind to being the awareness that holds the mind? Not by fighting the thoughts. This is essential. The moment you fight a thought, you have given it reality. You have engaged with it on its own terms. You have accepted its claim to importance. Fighting the mind is still the mind fighting the mind. It is still inside the dream. The way out is through a different quality of attention altogether. It is through what might be called bare awareness, simple noticing. The ability to observe a thought without following it, without judging it, without trying to change it or suppress it or understand it, simply seeing it. There is a thought about the future. There is the familiar anxiety. There is the voice telling me I'm not enough. When you can say there is that thought rather than I am thinking this and it is absolutely true. Something fundamental has shifted. The identification has loosened. You have stepped even slightly, even for a moment, out of the stream and onto the bank, and from the bank you can see the river, you can see the thoughts flowing. You can see the patterns, you can see the repetitions, and you can also begin to notice something else, something that is not a thought at all, the silence between thoughts, the gap, the brief, luminous pause between one mental movement and the next. Most people never notice this gap because they are so absorbed in the content of their thinking. But when you begin to look for it, when you begin to value it, when you begin to rest in it, even for a second, you discover something extraordinary. That gap is not empty. That gap is not full of a kind of alive, intelligent stillness, a peace that is not the peace of having solved your problems, but the peace that was there before the problems were created by the mind. A peace that does not depend on anything external. A peace that is in fact your most fundamental nature. This is what is meant by the present moment. Not simply the absence of past and future thinking, but the living reality of now, the aliveness that is always here when you stop running away from it, when you stop using the mind to escape from the only place you ever actually are. And here's where something very important needs to be said about the relationship between acceptance and the present moment. Because there's often a misunderstanding here. When you hear the word acceptance, the mind immediately objects. It says, if I accept this situation, I'm giving up, I'm being passive. I'm allowing bad things to happen, I'm not fighting for what I want. But this is a misunderstanding of what acceptance means. Acceptance does not mean that you approve of everything that happens. It does not mean you stop taking action. It does not mean you become indifferent to injustice or to your own well-being. Acceptance means that you stop fighting with the reality of the present moment. You stop arguing with what is, because here's the truth. Whatever is happening right now is happening. Fighting it in your mind does not change it. Resisting it emotionally does not undo it. The only thing that mental resistance does is add a layer of suffering on top of the already difficult situation. It is the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is sometimes unavoidable. Suffering is what the mind adds to pain when it refuses to accept the reality of the present moment. Think of a time when something difficult happened to you. Perhaps a relationship ended, or you received bad news, or something you worked hard for did not come to fruition. There was the event itself, and then there was the mind's reaction to the event. The why me, that this is not fair, the if only I had done something differently, the what does this say about me, the how will I ever recover from this. All of that, every single layer of that, was the mind's resistance to what had already happened. And all of that resistance, however understandable, however human, was a form of suffering that was added on top of the original difficulty. When you accept the present moment, you are not saying this is fine and I do not wish it were different. You are saying this is what is. And from this ground of acceptance, from this place of not fighting with reality, you can act far more clearly, far more effectively, far more intelligently than you ever could from a place of resistance and reactivity. The mind that is contracted in fear and resistance is a mind that cannot see clearly. The mind that is rooted in the acceptance of what is a mind that can respond to life rather than react to it. And that is a profound difference. Now let us talk about what this actually feels like in the body, because this is not only a philosophical concept. This is something that can be felt right now in your physical experience. Take a moment and notice your hands without moving them, without doing anything special. Just become aware of the aliveness in your hand. The subtle tingling, the warmth, the sense of energy that is present in the cells and tissues of your hands. You do not have to imagine this. It is actually there. It is the life force moving through the body. When you bring your attention into the body in this way, something very interesting happens. The thinking mind quiets, not because you have suppressed it, but because you have shifted the focus of your attention from the abstract, time-bound realm of thought to the immediate sensory reality of the present moment. The body is always in the now. The body cannot be in the past or the future. The body is here. This is why the body is such a powerful doorway to presence. When you feel your feet on the floor, when you notice the sensation of breathing, when you become aware of the aliveness in your hands or your chest or your face, you're using the body as an anchor to the moment. You're using sensation as a way of stepping out of the thought stream and into direct, immediate experience, and this does not require a meditation retreat. It does not require special conditions or a certain amount of time. It can happen in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of a difficult meeting, in the middle of a moment of anxiety. You can at any point bring a portion of your attention into the felt sense of your body, and in doing so you create a space, a small but real space between you and the automatic reactivity of the thinking mind. This is the beginning of what might be called the practice of presence. Not a practice in the sense of a rigid discipline that you do at a certain time and then forget about, but a practice in the sense of a continuously available possibility, the possibility of returning again and again to the aliveness of this moment, to the reality of now. And I want to say something about the word returning, because it is important. You will not stay present. That is not the goal, and it is not realistic. The mind will pull you back into its stream. You will find yourself 5 minutes after a beautiful moment of stillness, deep in a worry about something that may never happen. This is not failure. This is the nature of the conditioned mind. What matters is not how long you stay present, but how quickly you notice when you have left, how quickly you recognize, I have been lost in thought again. And in that recognition, you have already returned. The recognition itself is presence. The awareness that says I was not present is paradoxically the very awareness that is present. So there's no failure in this. There is only the continuous movement of losing yourself in thought and finding yourself again in awareness. And over time, with practice, the gaps between the two grow longer. The moments of presence become more frequent, more stable, more deeply felt, not because you're trying harder, but because you're trying differently. You're not fighting the mind, you're simply not following it. Let us now go a little deeper into something that many people find both difficult and liberating to hear. The story of you, the personal narrative that the mind has constructed over a lifetime, the character with a name and a history and a set of problems and a future to worry about, that story is not who you are. It is a story, a useful story perhaps in certain practical contexts, but a story nonetheless. Think about the version of yourself that existed 10 years ago, the concerns that felt so urgent then, the identity that felt so solid and real, the problems that felt so permanent. Where are they now? Most of them have dissolved. The self that had them has, in a very real sense, been replaced by a different self with different concerns, a different identity, different problems. And 10 years from now, this current version of you will seem equally temporary, equally constructed, equally a story. The ego builds its identity from the past. It says, I am the person who had this childhood, who made these mistakes, who was hurt in these ways, who achieved these things. And it projects that identity into the future. I will be the person who finally overcomes this, who achieves that, who becomes worthy of love and rest and peace. But the one who is aware of all of this, the one who can step back and see the story as a story, that one is not in the story, that one is the awareness in which the story unfolds. And that awareness has no personal history, it has no wounds, it has no failures, it has no unfulfilled future. It is simply aware, simply present, simply here. This does not mean that your personal history does not matter, or that your experiences have not shaped you, or that you should pretend that painful things did not happen. It means that you are not reducible to those things. It means that underneath the story, beneath the accumulated layers of memory and identity and self-concept, there's something that was never wounded. something that was never lost, something that is whole and still and free, and that something is not far away. It is not a state you need to achieve through years of effort. It is what remains when you stop adding to yourself, when you stop carrying the weight of everything the mind tells you that you are, when you allow, even for a moment, the story to be a story and rest in the awareness that is watching the story. This is what some traditions call liberation. Not a dramatic event, not a sudden mystical experience that changes everything, but a quiet, simple, profound recognition. The recognition that you were never actually trapped, that the prison was made of thought, that the door was always open, that the freedom you were seeking was the very awareness that was doing the seeking. Now, I want to speak to something that comes up for many people when they begin to explore these ideas. A kind of resistance that says, but if I stop identifying with my thoughts, if I stop being driven by my ego, if I accept the present moment, what will I do? Who will I be? Will I lose my ambition, my drive, my ability to function in the world? This is the ego asking these questions, and it is asking them because it senses correctly that its dominance is being threatened. But the answer is not what the ego fears. When you're rooted in presence, when you're acting from awareness rather than from the compulsive movement of thought, you do not become passive or indifferent. You become, in fact, more effective, more creative, more genuinely responsive to life, because you are no longer wasting enormous amounts of energy on mental resistance, on worry, on the constant background noise of the ego's self-referential activity. Think of the energy you spend every day in unproductive thinking, the circular worries that resolve nothing, the mental rehearsals of conversations that never happened, the replaying of old grievances, the comparing yourself to others, the fantasizing about futures that the mind constructs and then tears down. All of that energy, when it is no longer consumed by the ego's restless activity, becomes available for genuine engagement with life, for real creativity, for real connection with other people, for real action in the world. Presence is not the absence of action. It is the quality from which the most intelligent, the most compassionate, the most genuinely useful action arises. When you act from presence, you act from a place of clarity rather than reactivity. You respond to what is actually needed in this moment rather than to the distorted version of reality that the frightened ego and your relationships, when they are rooted in presence, transform in ways that no amount of communication technique or relationship advice can achieve. Because when you are truly present with another person, when you are not simultaneously managing your own mental commentary, not planning your response while they are still speaking, not filtering their words through your accumulated grievances, something extraordinary becomes possible. Real contact, real listening, the experience of actually meeting another human being, not their story as interpreted by your story, but the living reality of them in this moment. This is one of the greatest gifts of presence, the ability to truly see another person, and in seeing them, to give them the experience of being seen, which is at the deepest level what every human being most profoundly needs. There is a quality of attention that is itself a form of love, not the emotional, conditional, ego-driven love that the mind constructs, but a deeper, quieter, more fundamental openness to the reality of the other. And this quality of attention is only available when you are present. When you are here, let us now speak about something very practical. The moments in daily life when the pull of the mind is strongest, when the invitation to be present is most challenging and most needed. Moments of conflict. When someone says or does something that triggers the pain body, when the old wounds are activated and the reactive patterns arise, these are the moments that will test everything we have been exploring. Because in those moments, the mind moves very quickly. The story assembles itself almost instantly. The grievance solidifies. The self-righteousness rises. The desire to defend, to attack, to withdraw, to punish, all of it moves with tremendous speed and force. And here the practice of presence becomes not a philosophical luxury, but a genuine lifeline. In those moments, the invitation is not to suppress what you're feeling, not to pretend you're not hurt or angry or afraid. The invitation is to feel it fully, without immediately acting on it, without immediately believing the story the mind is telling about it, to bring your attention into the physical sensation of the emotion in your body. The tightness in the chest, the heat in the face, the contraction in the stomach, to meet the energy of the emotion directly without the narrative, without the justification, without the blame. When you can do this, even partially, even imperfectly, something begins to shift. The emotion moves, because emotions, when they are not fed by mental narrative, when they are not suppressed but genuinely felt, move through the body with surprising speed. It is the story around the emotion, the mind's interpretation and elaboration that keeps it frozen, that keeps it recycling, that turns a passing wave of feeling into a chronic state of suffering. Feel it without the story. This is perhaps the most practical and the most difficult thing being offered here, and it is difficult precisely because the mind will insist that the story is necessary. It will say, but I need to understand why I feel this way. I need to figure out whose fault this is. I need to plan how to protect myself in the future. And yes, sometimes thinking about a situation is genuinely useful. Sometimes understanding is needed. Sometimes action is required. But most of the time, the mental activity around an emotion is not leading to understanding or to action. It is simply the pain body feeding. It is the mind spinning in circles, consuming its own suffering, keeping itself alive through the very pain it claims to want to escape. The way through is not around. The way through is directly into the felt sense of the present moment, into the body, into the breath, into the simple, immediate reality of now. And from that ground, from that rootedness in presence, whatever understanding is genuinely needed will arise. Whatever action is genuinely required will become clear. Not because you forced it, but because clarity is the natural state of awareness when it is not obscured by the compulsive movement of the ego mind. We are approaching the end of this conversation. And I want to use this final space not to summarize or to conclude in the way the mind might expect, but to invite you into something. Right now, in this moment before the next thought arises, there is a stillness. You may not notice it immediately because the mind is very loud and very insistent, but it is there. It is always there, like the silence that holds sound, like the space that holds all objects. It is the background against which everything else appears, and that stillness is not separate from you. It is not something you need to find or create or travel to. It is what you are when you stop insisting on being something else, when you stop carrying the weight of your personal history into every moment, when you allow this moment exactly as it is to be enough. There is a profound rest available to you right now, not the rest of sleep, not the rest of distraction, not the rest of having finally solved all your problems, but the rest of no longer fighting with what is. The rest of allowing the present moment to be exactly as it is. The rest of releasing the burden of the story, even for a moment, even imperfectly, and simply being here. You have been trying to find your way home for a very long time, and the mind has been very helpful in generating maps and directions and plans for how to get there. But the maps are not the territory, and the directions always point somewhere else, somewhere in the future, somewhere you are not yet. Home is not somewhere you arrive. Home is what you are when you stop leaving. Home is this moment. Home is this awareness. Home is the quiet. alive, undeniable reality of now, the thoughts will continue. The mind will continue to produce its commentary, its worries, its plans, its stories. That is what minds do. You do not need to stop that. You do not need to achieve a perfectly quiet mind. You only need to remember again and again that you're not the thoughts. You are the awareness in which the thoughts arise. You are the sky, not the clouds. You are the riverbank, not the current. And each time you remember this, each time you step back into that awareness, even for a moment, even briefly, you're not just finding peace for yourself. You are contributing something real and rare to the world around you, because a human being who is rooted in presence, who is not driven by the unconscious reactivity of the ego, who can meet this moment with openness and clarity, that human being changes every room they enter. They change every conversation. They bring something into the world that the world is desperately hungry for, not more noise, not more urgency, not more striving and achieving and performing, but presence. Simple, genuine, awake presence. The greatest gift you can give to anyone you love, to any situation you find yourself in, to any challenge you face, is your full, undivided presence. Not your cleverness, not your strategies, not your carefully constructed self-image. Your presence, your aliveness, your willingness to be here fully in this moment without reservation. This is not the end of something. There's no end, there's only this moment, and then this moment, and then this moment again. Each one complete in itself, each one whole, each one the only place where life is ever actually happening. So let the mind continue its activity, let the thoughts come and go, let the emotions move through the body like weather. And underneath all of it, beneath the noise and the movement and the endless becoming, rest in what you have always been. Rest in the awareness that was here before the first thought of this morning. Rest in the stillness that no thought has ever touched. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. You only need to stop running away from the one thing that was never lost, the one thing that is always here. The one thing that when you finally allow yourself to feel it is recognized not as something new, but as something deeply, profoundly, unmistakably familiar. This moment, this awareness, this now, that is all, that is everything, that is enough.